Our main topic today is going to be a solid state drive and RAM by myself, Tom Kreuzer. First, we'll cover a few things for the club agenda, and then we'll get to our main topic. Future meetings, we have a MaxSig coming up next week on March 24th at 11:30. If you do have an iPad or an iPhone or a Mac, I highly recommend you join those meetings. And there's, if you contact Mike Griffin, you can get added to his distribution list. Our next Q&A, online Q&A session will be April 4th, Tuesday, April 4th. And then this is an announcement. Our next general meeting will be April 19th, and that'll be an in-person option. So if you can make it, that would be great. We will have free sandwiches for those people attending. It's limited to the first 24 people who sign up. If you can't make it in person, we will also broadcast that on the web like we're doing here. The topic that in April will be identity theft and the dark web. What is identity theft? What is the dark web? And some tips to protect yourself. And this is a little different than the scams, because scams are one way people get information. Identity theft, generally the largest way that people get that information is through data breaches and some other things that you really don't have any control over. So we'll talk about that and what the truth is. And again, that's going to be a sandwich meeting and limited to the first 24 people who respond. I'll send out an email either later today or tomorrow for information on signing up and picking a sandwich there. So hope you can attend and that. Our officers, Jim is our president, Linda is our vice president, Paul is our membership secretary, Paula is our treasurer, Chuck is our recording secretary, Mike is our MaxSig, Andrew is our communication coordinator, and I'm a director at large. We can always use volunteers, and being that we're getting back together and doing some of these things, if you'd like to volunteer to help with the food meetings, picking up water, or in this case cookies, or helping with ordering the sandwiches or the setup, you can contact any of the board members, and we'd love to have you help there. And we are talking about what we might do. We might not have a picnic this year, but we'll have something in the summer, and then we'll have our pizza again in the fall again. So hopefully from this point on, we can have the in-person option for the meetings and have some of these get together a little more frequently there. I don't know if you have anything to say, Jim, or want to say anything on the meeting or anything there?
No, nothing to add right now.
Okay. And if you do have questions after we send out the email on the meeting, and only sign up if you're sure that you can make it, because we do have limited seating and we don't want you just signing up and then not showing up in April. So if you do respond back, make sure that you are going to attend. Members old and new, you can pay your dues to Paul. Paul will send out a notice when your membership to the club is expiring, but also a reminder, if you are retiring or changing your email, make sure and notify us, because really the email is all we have to send out notices and information. If you do have suggestions for topics, you can email us, talk to any of the board members, and we're always looking for people to volunteer to present on hardware and software that you may be using at work or at home, or to write a short or a long article in our monthly eBytes newsletter. If you do miss any of the meetings or want to revisit a meeting, you can check the website, and there is the past meetings where we put the slides and handouts. We do try and record most of the meetings, so those are out there. We do have a deals section, our monthly newsletter, and the link to the club is sent in all the emails. Okay, let's get to our main topic today, which is solid state drive and RAM by myself, Tom Kreuzer. And this is kind of a busy graphic here, but I'm trying to show the major components. And on the right here, we have the major components of a desktop system. And so we do have things like the monitor and the keyboard and the CPU and the GPU or video card. But here's what we're going to be talking about today. Storage, which is HDD or hard disk drive or SSD, solid state drive. And then we have RAM. So this is a major component in a desktop or a laptop or anything like that. But it's also a major component in your phones and in your tablets and in almost any device that you have today has all of these same components. So in your phone, there is a CPU, there is a GPU, but there's also a solid state drive, and there's also RAM in there. And so all of these devices are very similar. When I talk today and say things about a PC, it also equates to a phone and a tablet. It's just that the amount of memory that you need on these different devices, whether it's for running the operating system or for storing your documents and photos and stuff like that, is usually less than what you might have on a laptop or desktop machine. If you're running Windows, that operating system needs more memory and that than the operating systems in an Android or an iOS device. But today we'll talk about solid state drives and RAM memory. Okay, do you need more storage? We're always running out of storage, whether you take pictures or videos or create documents. We can all use more storage there. The other part that can be addressed by these two is, do you want faster performance? So today you may think that your device, again, whether it's a PC or a phone or whatever, is in this snail. So you think it's running as slow as the snail. Well, to improve that, it's time to upgrade your device or buy a new device or PC. And when you do that, you want to make sure that your current or future PC has the right drives and the right amount of RAM. So you're no longer in that snail category. Maybe you move up to the tortoise or lion or even the falcon there. If you hate waiting for your computer to boot up, maybe it's taking a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes to boot up, or your programs are taking 30 seconds when you click on them to open up, you definitely want to add a solid state drive, whether it's to your existing PC or a new PC. With a solid state drive, your computer can boot up in as little as 10 seconds and programs launch almost instantly. So that can be kind of gratifying, especially if you're going from that snail category going up there. Okay, in order to talk about SSDs or solid state drives, we really do have to compare it to the older technology, which is the hard disk drive or the HDD. And this is a graphic on the right side, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. A hard disk drive contains a series of platters that spin at 5400 or 7200 RPM. So that's what this area is here. This is the platters. In this case, this is showing 3. And you may just have one platter in there, or you may have a bunch of platters. The speed of the spinning there, the faster it spins, the faster the drive can read and write. Because in order to move the head and read data off of one spot on a disk to another spot, if it's spinning faster, that just means 5400 RPM to 7200 RPM is 50% faster than 5400 RPM. So a lot of the old hard drives, if you do have an older hard drive, even buying a newer hard drive that's 7200 is going to make things faster there. These platters that are in here are covered by a ferromagnetic coating. So it's a magnetic coating, and that's used to store non-volatile data, which basically means non-volatile is if the power is turned off, we don't lose anything that's written on here. So that's what we've got there. And obviously, there's many times when a desktop is turned off or a laptop is turned off or some device, we wouldn't want to lose all the photos or Word documents or whatever we had stored on there. On this ferromagnetic coating, the direction of the magnetization of the platters represents the individual bits of 1 and 0s. So computers are all run off of 1s and 0s. So the way that the magnetic media on here is turned into the polarization, if it's one direction, it's a 0, and if it's the other direction, it's a 1. So that's all that can be written on any spot anywhere on the drive is a series of 1s and 0s. Data is written and read by a fast-moving head, and these heads are similar to the way a vinyl record album plays music. You can see it here. Here's the read-write head. There's a head for this platter here. There's also a head pointing up to the bottom of this platter, and then the top of the second platter, bottom of the second platter, top of the third platter, and the bottom of the third platter. Then you have another device here, the actuator, that moves this head in and out so that it can read anywhere on this disk as it's spinning around. Okay, what are some of the pros of a hard disk drive compared to a solid state drive? Well, they are cheaper, and as we'll talk about, they have a longer lifespan. The cons, they're slower. They're very mechanical because of all the spinning of the head here, the head moving, and the head flying literally nanometers above the surface there. They can be very fragile. They also use more power or battery. Because they're spinning and the head moves, they're louder. They make sounds. They're a larger physical size and weight than what an SSD is. And because of the way that they write information on here in the magnetic media and that, files become what's called fragmented. They're dispersed across the entire hard drive. And that means that some maintenance should be done where you defrag the hard drive to improve the performance of it. Okay, let's take a high-level look at a solid-state drive or an SSD. So this is a little graphic of an SSD down in the bottom right-hand corner here. And we have the memory itself. Then in order to use this memory, there's a controller that has to be on there somewhere. And this is actually a CPU with memory and an operating system that controls reading and writing from this memory. Then there's also a cache, and the cache is meant to speed up the reading and writing for things that you do frequently. So SSDs are a newer technology that stores information on flash memory in individual memory cells that are instantly accessible by the controller, and like the hard drive, they're non-volatile data. So that means if you lose power or power is turned off or that, you don't lose the data that's on the drive there. They are used in most new PCs. It's almost hard to find a new PC, whether it's a desktop or a laptop, that doesn't come with an SSD. They're also used on all tablets and all smartphones, because if we would have had to have hard drives in tablets and smartphones, they'd be a lot heavier. Battery wouldn't last as long. We'd have problems. So thank God for SSDs. These flash chips are dubbed NAD, and they are a different type of memory than what is on a USB flash drive. So some people think that a flash drive is the exact same thing as an SSD, and it isn't. It's technology-wise, it's completely different. What they do is very similar, but how they do it is very different. So even though it's memory, it is a different type than what you see on a flash drive or an SD card. Those are the cards that some people will add to their phones, a micro SD, or to a camera, a video camera, or things like that. SSD memory is much faster and also more reliable. SD and USB are kind of cheap memory options. SSDs are consequently more expensive than a USB thumb drive or an SD card of the same capacity. Some internal SSDs install in traditional 2.5 or 3.5 inch drive bays. So that's this example down in the bottom right hand corner here. This has the same connections that a hard disk drive has and would fit into any of the desktops or laptops that an equivalent 2.5 or 3.5 inch hard drive would fit into. Other models, so some of the newer models, can be installed in a PCI Express expansion slot or even mounted directly to the motherboard, a configuration that's now common, and a lot of the newer computers use this, and that's known as M.2. So this is about 2 inches or 3 inches long and about 3/4 of an inch wide, and it plugs right into the motherboard of a laptop or a desktop. And that's the entire drive right on that single piece there. The pros of an SSD are that it's faster than a hard drive. Doesn't have those moving parts, non-mechanical, so things aren't going to break the way they can on a hard drive. It uses less power and battery. It's quieter, smaller physical size and weight, and more reliable in extreme high or low temperatures. The cons: it is more expensive than a hard drive and has a shorter lifespan. Okay, so let's dig into some of the differences a little bit deeper, and I don't want to get too technical, but it is important to know the differences between a hard disk drive and a solid state drive. The main difference is the speed. The speed between a hard disk drive and an SSD will vary greatly. So any article or any person who claims that their SSD is 10 times faster than a hard disk drive is blowing smoke up the wazoo there, because it all depends on the size of the files that are being read and written and the SSD controller that's on with those other chips. So if you're reading or copying large files, an SSD can be anywhere from 2 times faster to 1,000 times faster, while if you're just reading and writing small files, you really won't notice any difference. They're both done in a fraction of a second. So your speed will vary, and HDDs or hard disk drives also have a delay of spinning up to speed because they have to spin that platter and then moving the head to read. So even reading a small file, that's a lot of overhead. Well, an SSD never has any of that overhead. But to specifically say that my SSD is 20 times faster or 100 times faster is inaccurate because it really depends on what operations you're doing, whether you're reading, whether you're writing, whether it's a large file, where you're watching video, you're doing this. You may or may not notice that much difference, or it may be hundreds of times faster. Okay, this is the one that's kind of tricky because I've talked to people before about this, and most people are unaware of this. Uh, so solid state drive cells have a limited lifespan. The way that information is put onto that solid state is a process, and that current SSD cells that you have on there can only be written about 3,000 times before they die. So they have a very limited life. Doesn't sound like a whole lot if I can only write 3,000 times onto that drive. But thanks to the principle of wear leveling, and that's built into the controller that is doing the writes onto the SSD, it spreads out the operation evenly across the cells to minimize cell death and prolong the life of the drive. So doesn't sound like a whole lot being able to only write 3,000 times there on there and then the cell dying and your drive becoming useless. Well, you have to put it in perspective. If you write data to an SSD 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's relatively small files and the SSD isn't filled up with data, it would take several decades for the drive to break down and the cells to have been written 3,000 times. So for most people, the PC or the laptop that you have will be obsoleted before all of the SSD cells all die. That doesn't mean that 10%, 20% of your hard drive may be dead. And when those cells die, the controller won't write information out there. So if you had a 1 terabyte SSD, at 1 terabyte, over time, when a particular cell gets written over 3,000 times and no longer works, it's marked as dead, but the rest of the drive will still work. You'll just have less space, less space, less space over time. And there's actually utilities where you can check out the health of your SSD. Okay, another important difference in comparing the two is security and data recovery. SSDs use what's called a trim command to destroy data when files are deleted. So again, this is very much different between an SSD and a hard disk drive. Hard disk drive, we talked about that magnetic media, it being 1 and 0, the way SSDs work, and we won't go into it because it's too complex, but it is very different than magnetic media, and thus this routine to trim and destroy the data on the SSDs is built into the controller again to equalize wear access across all these cells. But what it does is it also makes it harder to recover any deleted files. In fact, it makes it almost impossible. Data recovery for SSDs is best handled by a professional lab that's with specialized equipment and software. You aren't going to be able to do it at home like there's utilities and there's ways to do it with a hard disk drive. You aren't going to be able to do that with an SSD. Regardless of the type of drive that you have, though, the best way to protect your data, as we've always talked about, is to regularly back up your data to external storage devices, and that could be another SSD or a HDD or the cloud storage. See some of the previous PCC presentations on backup for more information on that. But these drives do die. You do have problems. So you want to prepare for that, and that's what any backup is for. SSDs are much cheaper than they were just a few years ago, so the price continues to go down every year. But there still is a price difference. Currently, you can buy a 1 terabyte internal hard drive for about 30 bucks on the low end and $60 on the upper end, while a 1 terabyte internal SSD costs about double, $60, and depending on the speed, the price can go up to like $200. So they are more expensive. HDD does have, we mentioned, a spinning platter inside when they're working at 5400 or 7200 RPMs, and it makes the sound as the arm moves back and forth. And if you've ever been in a quiet room or heard your laptop or desktop, you can hear the kind of a hum when the drive is spinning, and then when the head is moving, it's kind of a ticking, tick, 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 tick. That's the head going back and forth. An SSD is silent, no moving parts. With no mechanical components, SSDs draw less power and battery than their spinning counterparts. Having said this, comparing the HDD to the SSD, price isn't a factor, so you've got money there. SSDs are definitely the way to go. HDDs are preferable only if you're storing large amounts of data without needing to access it very often. So frequently for backups and things like that, HDDs are going to be cheaper and you can get them larger sizes. Doesn't have to be an either or choice though. You're starting to see a number of desktops, especially desktop, not so much the laptops. Most of the laptops are just SSD only, and they don't have a hard drive at all. But a number of the desktops now do have dual drive, where they have both types of hard drives. That way you can put the operating system, the software and apps, and the most used files on your SSD, while you can put other data that sits out on your HDD. As an example, I just bought a new PC, new to me, it's a reconditioned PC, but I bought a PC, an HP PC, for $400. It comes with an 11th generation Intel 6 core i5, 2.6 gigahertz CPU, 12 gigabytes of RAM, 256 gigabyte SSD, but also a 1 terabyte HDD. Also has a DVD and comes with Windows 11. So you don't have to spend an arm and a leg for some of this stuff now. Prices have come down, and this is an example of the dual drive, where in total I've got 1.256 terabytes of space. Okay, so that's some information on the hard drives, solid state and hard disk drive. Let's talk about random access memory. And RAM is one of the most vital components in a PC next to the CPU. A hard disk drive or a solid state drive is for long-term storage. RAM is for short-term memory needed to run the operating system and the software and apps. So that when we were talking about SSDs and hard drives, the software could be loaded out there and the data is loaded out there, but in order for it to run or to be able to do anything on the computer, it has to be in RAM. And so RAM is this other form of memory. RAM is a small amount of extremely fast storage that is volatile. So unlike the hard disk drive and that, where you turn the power off and it doesn't lose anything, RAM is volatile, meaning if it loses power, everything is gone there. And it's only maintained while it's receiving power. If you have too little RAM, it causes the operating system to spend time swapping your software, running software that you're currently running, in and out of RAM, which makes your PC painfully slow. So we talked about the snail there. It's slower than a snail. I don't know what would be slower than a snail, but it would Very, very slow. It can be like 100 times slower if you're running out of RAM than it would be if you had adequate RAM. If you're frustrated by unresponsive programs, lagging load times, and generally a slow PC, lack of RAM is most likely to blame. This is especially true with today's money-hungry applications like browsers, office programs like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, video, photo editing packages, graphic-intensive games, and the desire we all have of having a number of these things running at the same time. Even just having a browser, if all you have is a browser open, but let's say you've got 20 tabs open in that browser, well, that's consuming a tremendous amount of memory there. Also, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of processes that are constantly running in the background in your operating system, such as system updates, security, scanning, utilities, notifications, and they all consume RAM. To check if you need more RAM on a PC, start all the software that you need to have running at the same time. So you'd go into Windows or whatever and you'd have up and running all the software that you want. Then you can hit Control Alt Delete and click on Task Manager, then select the Performance tab. Select Memory to see the percent used of the RAM. If it's above 90%, it's time to buy more memory. The screen also tells you the type of memory that you have, the number of slots in your device, excuse me, and what slots are currently being used. Don't spend more money than you have to on RAM. So just because you can afford it, buying 32 gigabytes of RAM when you only need 8 gigabytes of RAM will not make your PC run one iota faster. So this is one of those cases of having more is not better or faster there. You only want to buy the RAM that you really need. I mentioned here, RAM is the easiest component to upgrade in any desktop or laptop because you don't even need a screwdriver. The way that the chips come, they fit into slots on the motherboard and they just snap in and snap out. So whether you're upgrading or that, very easy to do. You can look at online tutorials if you want a little help there. The only caveat that I'll put out there about doing the replacement is, especially in the wintertime, be very careful of static electricity. Because if you walk across a carpet and build up static electricity and then touch the memory that you're going to be putting in there, you can zap the memory and completely destroy it. And that's true of anything on any electrical device. You can zap the motherboard and the chips that are on there with static electricity. So you want to make sure you're grounded and don't build up static electricity. Also, I mentioned here, you can use a site like Crucial to see exactly what type of memory if you do want to upgrade. Let's go out here quickly here. So this is the Crucial. Crucial is one of the largest suppliers of memory. And so they have a website. And I can go out here and they have almost for every type of computer. I'm going to look for an HP computer. And the HP computer that I'm looking for, oh, we don't need the program. We want a model here on TP01. So there's the Pavilion Series 1. And then I can put my model number. My model number in this case, 2337. So this is my reconditioned computer that I just got here. And we'll click on that. And it'll show us I can either look for compatible SSDs to put in there or compatible RAM. Let's go in and look at RAM. So this is showing me some RAM here. This is if I wanted to buy two 16 gigabytes set of memory. So these are these set of memory, and they just snap into the seat or into the motherboard there. If I wanted to upgrade my machine so it had a total of 32 gigabyte, replacing both what's currently in there with two 16 gigabytes, I could buy that for $69 here. And this tells me the type of memory it is, the speed of the memory, the number of pins that are here, the voltage that it takes, and that's where there's differences between all the different computers that are out there. So this is showing me, this is one example. If I wanted 32 gigabytes, whether it's two 16 gigabytes, here I could buy a single 32 gigabyte memory card for $65. Here I could buy 64 gigabytes for $129, and it shows all the different memory that's for sale. There's 8 gigabytes. They probably even sell the 4 gigabytes. All the different memory if I wanted to buy it there, even down to 4 gigabytes to add. So if my machine had 8 gigabytes on there and I wanted to upgrade it to 12 gigabytes, this would be all I'd need to upgrade it. I'd buy this, cost me $15. I'd get it in the mail. It'd take me just a couple of minutes there to open up the computer, snap it in, turn on the computer. The computer would recognize a new memory, and I'd be ready to go there. So this is the site that can be used to get that information. Okay, on the previous screen I talked about doing the Control-Alt-Delete and going in and checking your RAM. So this is what it looks like there. If you go to the Performance tab and you select the memory there, this was captured it on my desktop machine, which has 12 gigabytes of RAM or 11.8 gigabytes of usable RAM. Currently, with the software that I had loaded, I was only using 5.3 gigahertz, so I was only using 45% of my available RAM. This also tells you the speed down here, and in this case, this is telling me that of the 12 gigabytes of RAM, it's using 2 of 2 slots, so I don't have an open slot. If I wanted to upgrade my memory from 12 gigabytes to, let's say, 16 gigabytes, I'd have to take out one of them. So right now there is a 8 gigabyte card in there and a 4 gigabyte card. I'd take out the 4 gigabyte, I'd have to buy another 8 gigabyte, and then I could put it in. And this is the type of memory it is, DIMM. So let's do this. So this is a screen capture. Let's give it a try here. I'm going to do Control-Delete, and we'll see if we can get here. I'll go to Task Manager, and within Task Manager, I can go to Performance. This is Performance. So this is my laptop. This is my Windows 10 laptop. This, I have 8 gigabytes of memory on this machine. I'm currently only using, and this is with Teams running, with PowerPoint running, with a browser running. So I've got quite a few things running there. And the 8 gigabytes is sufficient for what I currently have running. This is the speed of the memory. In this case, this machine, I'm only using one of my 2 slots. So if I did want to bump up this machine, I could add memory to it without taking out any existing memory. This is the type of memory it is. So that's a quick way on a PC of checking and seeing what you currently have. And also, like I mentioned on the slide, if your machine is running very slow or having problems running out of RAM, you'd see this number up above probably 90% there. And if it completely runs out, if it's over 100%, then it has to swap to a hard disk drive. That's what makes it painfully slow there. So Task Manager is an easy way to check your RAM and to make sure that everything's running okay there. Okay, let's go back here. Here's some general recommendations about RAM for a Windows 10 or a Windows 11 PC. 8 gigabytes is usually sufficient for a casual user where you're doing internet browsing, email, listening to music, or watching TV or video. 12 to 16 gigabytes of RAM is more for an intermediate user. If you're doing browsing, email, word processing, spreadsheet, running simple graphics, flash games, music, and you're trying to multitask. 16 to 32 gigabytes is usually what if you were a professional user. So if you're a gamer, a graphic designer, or a coder, let's say at 3M, you'd want more memory. In fact, we'd bump it up even to 64 gigabyte or 128 gigabyte because compiling large programs or doing stuff, the more memory you have, the faster the machine. Well, it's a lot cheaper to buy memory than it is to pay the salary of somebody waiting for a slow process. So if you do have needs, you want to check out, buy the appropriate amount of memory there. Now, you may have also heard of something called video random access memory. That's called VRAM. VRAM is used to support graphics, and we aren't going to cover that today, but when you buy a desktop or a laptop or that, it comes with graphics cards and a GPU, a graphics processing unit. Well, that also wants its own dedicated memory, and that can also affect performance. But that's usually just for people that are real gamers or real particular things there. Okay, some other tips. SSDs and HDDs can either be internal, meaning inside the computer, or external with a cable, a USB or a C or that. So they can either be internal or external. And the little graphic over here is trying to show this is that M.2 memory that fits in on the motherboard. This is an example of an external SSD. This is an example of internal hard drive here. Reminder, most people aren't aware, but when you buy any machine, a laptop, a desktop, not all the USB connections are the same. In fact, they're almost always different. So some of them on the back of the machine are different than the front. Some of them on the front are completely different specs than the ones higher up. So look at your manual or look at the icon that's on your PC or your device. You may have some USB connections that are USB 2, which is slower, or USB 3, which is faster, or USB super speed type A, which is a 5 gigabytes per second, or a USB super speed type A 10 gigabytes, or a super speed USB type C 5 gigabytes. And this is what you can kind of see if your device does have icons next to the slots like this. This gives you an idea. This is just a regular 2. This is some even have a 20 gigabits per second speed there and ultra speeds here. So these are just some icons that be aware of which slots. So if you have a desktop, for example, I'm not going to plug my keyboard into the fastest USB slot. I can plug that into a slow old slot on my desktop. Whereas if I have an external drive that I'm doing backups to, I want to use the fastest slot available. So I look on whether that's on the front of my desktop or on the back of my desktop. I look for the fastest to match up with the capabilities of my external drive and hook that up to that slot. So again, all slots are not created equal. Understand your device, understand what each of those slots are on your devices. An SSD has no moving parts, so it's more likely to keep your data safe, even in the event you drop your laptop bag or your system gets shaken while it's operating. Most hard drives park their read-write heads when the system is idle or off, but when they're working, the head is flying over the platter there at a distance of a few nanometers, which is less than a hair there. So that's why you have the term a hard disk crash. The head crashes into the platter there and destroys data. Besides, even parking brakes have limits on saving your data. If you're tough on your equipment, an SSD is recommended over an HDD. Prices continue to drop and the speeds continue to get faster for the SSDs. Buy what you need today and upgrade in a year or two if needed. So don't spend a ton on storage today that you really aren't going to use or need for another year or two. Wait until a year or two and buy a new 2 terabyte SSD or a 5 terabyte SSD. Buy it when you need it. If you are putting a Windows operating system on it, you want to have at least 256 gigabytes for that in your software. When a file is written on a hard drive, it's saved in a number of small, usually 4K files on the first free spot on the drive. That means that a 10 megabit file, like a picture, is written in 2,500 slots on the hard drive. As files are deleted, moved, updated, and in general usage, the files end up getting written all over and split up all over the drive. The more you use your PC, the more fragmented your programs and data get, and the longer it takes to find and use what you're looking for. You can go to the Windows Start menu, Administrative Tools, Defragment, and Optimize Drives, and that'll defragment. And defragmenting, you want to go through, that'll improve performance on your hard disk drive. Defragmenting should not be done on SSDs because if you are defragging, there's no reason to defrag, number one, because there's no moving head, so there's no advantage to having one slot right next to another. But actually, a defragger would go through and move things right next to each other. But actually, you'd be shortening the life of that SSD because, again, it has a limited number of writes that you can do to a cell, and so you'd be shortening the life by defragmenting it. Also, I mentioned here the Microsoft Cleanup frees up space on your PC hard drive to improve performance. You can go to the Start menu, Window Administration, Disk Cleanup. If you use browsers like Safari, Chrome, or Firefox, use their function. For phones and tablets, go to Settings, Storage, Manage Storage, and you can do the same thing. It'll help you clean up stuff out there. Just a reminder here too, keep good photos or videos and delete the rest. Too many people keep too much crap out on their phones and devices there. Get rid of the stuff. Keep the good stuff, but get rid of the rest. Back up and move your good photos and videos to the cloud to free up space on your device. Excuse me. SSDs are more resilient than hard disk drives when it comes to hot and cold. The temperature that an SSD is stored at can affect its data retention. Try to limit exposure to extreme hot or cold temperatures, especially over extended periods. If you store lots of data for a long time, lots of photographs or things like that, be wary of any SSD or HDD. They do not last forever. You do want to be using it. You do want to be constantly updating it and having backups on different devices there. If you store a SSD or a hard drive in a car in the summer and the temperature goes above 110 degrees, you're shortening the life of that drive. So if you leave a laptop in there or an external drive, or put it up in the attic or do anything down in the basement and it's cold in the winter or hot in the summer, you're affecting the life of that drive, and it's not going to last that long. And you do want to make sure that you do have backups. I've known people that have kept photos on SD cards or flash drives and gone back 4 years later or 5 years later, and none of their data is out there. And that's because nothing lasts forever. That's the nature of these things, and how you store it and what you do, they all have a limited life. Another tip here, don't completely fill your SSD with data, because if you fill that SSD with data, that wear leveling we talked about, where it balances out where it writes data and doesn't keep writing in the same cells, or after 3,000 writes there, that cell will be dead. Well, if you've got it almost all filled up and you continue to write things out there, guess what? Those cells are going to die after 3,000 writes there, and your drive is going to malfunction there. So you don't want to be doing that. And so we talk about one problem, wear leveling can only be used on cells that are open. And so if you have your hard disk completely full, it can't move around where it writes things, and it's gonna cause those cells to die in an awful hurry there. If a cell on your drive is being used for long-term storage, the drive is forced to reuse other cells when it needs more space, which increases the read-write cycles on those open cells faster. By deleting unused files on your computer or moving them to an external hard drive for long-term storage, you open up as much storage on your drive as possible for wear leveling. Whatever drive you use, the best way to protect your data is with regular backups to external storage devices and cloud storage. And like I said, look at previous presentations on backup. Devices like smartphones and tablets have always used SSDs and never had an HDD. You can also look at the past PC meeting, 2002, the December one. Why are my devices slow? For other tips and techniques. Excuse me. One last graphic here. This is an example of 19. You can see the hand here for scale. This is an example of a 1981 hard drive. And this is what 3M had, and, along with other companies, IBM hard drive. At that time, it held 1 gigabyte. It weighed 75 pounds, and it cost $81,000. So the person is holding here a SD card here that holds 128 gigabytes. Its weight is 0.07 ounces, and it costs $10. We've come a long way, baby, and I'm glad prices have come down, because none of us would be able to afford anything like this, and things have really improved. Okay, that concludes the deal there. I'll turn off the sharing, and if you have a question, you can unmute and turn on your video if you want, and I'll also look at the chat. So let me go here, and let me see if I can pull it up here. Stop sharing here, and let me get back here, and I'm going to turn on my video. And we'll take a look at the chat. Let's see, where are we here? How do we sign up for the April 19th lunch meeting? Good question there. And I see Jim did it. I'll be sending out an email either later today or tomorrow, and you can respond and sign up there. The handout. Okay. Just getting to the memory in my laptop. Removing the back can be painful. Yeah, laptops, because they're constrained a little bit with size. It can either be very easy or it can be very hard. Some of the laptops, literally, there's just a flip switch on the bottom that opens up a trap door, and you can get at it and you can replace it. Some other laptops make it extremely hard to get at the RAM or the hard drive within the laptop, where you have to unscrew the bottom and potentially take off different components to get to it. So if you're looking to replace a RAM or a hard drive or that in a laptop, it's best to do a little Google search beforehand, and that'll show you the steps there. But again, some of the better manufacturers, and a better manufacturer I'd mention is HP. One of the worst manufacturers I'd mention is Dell. Dell likes to make things hard, and Dell, in most cases, you can't buy crucial memory. The memory site that I went out to there, you have to buy Dell memory from them. They're the only ones who sell memory for their machines, and they want to keep it proprietary with the pins that they have, the way it connects, and things like that. So there are better manufacturers and worse manufacturers, and better models of computers, and in general, a desktop is going to be a breeze to make any change. A laptop, it just depends on the maker and the model, how easy or how hard it is. Okay, Steve asks, what is the process of adding an internal SSD drive to a computer? What to look out for? There's a couple of ways that you can do it. So one way is to if you wanted to start out with a brand new clean slate, you would essentially, and you didn't want to use the existing hard drive that's in there. Let's say the existing hard drive crashed, or you just didn't feel that you needed it at all. You could take it out. And you could put in the new hard drive, the new SSD. At most, you'd have to do is, when you boot the machine, the BIOS on. If you have a current machine, the BIOS should recognize the hard drive, no problem at all. And you'd have the hard drive. You then have to completely start from scratch loading Windows. If you're going to use Windows as your operating system, you'd have to have a flash drive to be able to boot from the flash drive and load it that way. Now, if you're going to do something like that, some people will take their existing machine and do a complete backup of it, of the entire drive, and then do a restore onto the SSD, and then move that to the machine where you want it to be, and turn on the machine, and you may have to do a little bit of changes in there, but most everything is going to work there. The other thing is, yeah, some people will put in no hard drives. In general, though, if you go to a place and buy a hard drive and then have somebody put it in, and then have somebody put in the operating system on there, you're going to be spending almost as much money as buying a brand new machine. And that brand new machine would have a faster CPU, have a better modem, have almost better everything. So in general, I'd recommend, if your machine is more than a year or two old, use your machine, be happy with it until you have a problem or that. Then the next machine that you buy, make sure you have the SSD and the appropriate amount of RAM and everything else there. Now, replacing RAM is a little bit different, because RAM is that non-volatile. So this is an example of a deal there. Well, I can pop this into, if this is the right memory for my desktop, I can just open up my desktop, pop it in. I don't have to reconfigure Windows. I don't have to do anything there, because there's no data stored on here. There's no program stored on here. Whereas a hard drive, if you're going to be replacing it, you're going to have to get that set up on the new SSD, that type of thing. Let's see. What process? Let's see. Jim White asks, I need a new laptop. Where to go to buy an HP like you did? Uh, the the new machine that I bought was a desktop, and I searched the internet, and I ended up buying mine off of Walmart.com. But I know another guy who bought the same machine. He bought it off of Newegg. Also, I saw it a couple of weeks later. It was on sale out on eBay for $399, actually cheaper than what I paid for it and the other guy paid for it at Newegg. And that was on eBay, and it was being sold by Newegg on eBay. So that was quite interesting. You couldn't buy it for $399 on Newegg, but you could buy it on eBay from Newegg for $399. So if you're looking to buy, you just have to. I think we've had our presentation before on where to buy things. Check around, know what you want, then you can start searching and find the right deals there. Now, I bought the desktop. You can buy reconditioned laptops. I'm not a real fan of reconditioned laptops, even though most of the reconditioned laptops, they'll put new batteries in and things like that. You don't know how abused that laptop might have been in its life. So I feel more comfortable buying a desktop reconditioned than I do a laptop, but that's up to people. The other thing, again, if you're looking for a simple computer now, I had a guy just a couple days ago ask me what to buy. He just wanted basics, and I showed him the Sunday ad from Target there. They have an HP laptop, Windows 11. Only buy a Windows 11 machine. Don't buy. You'll see a ton of Windows 10 machines out there, really, really cheap. I've seen people say, oh, here's a cube or here's a desktop I can buy for $150. Don't buy a Windows 10 machine because it's going to be obsolete by 2025 when it's no longer supported. So you do want a Windows 11 machine, as I mentioned, out on Target, 8 gigabyte of RAM. I forgot if it was a 256 gigabyte SSD. For $399 for a basic machine. It's running Windows S, and Windows S does have some limitations, but if Windows S is too limiting for you, you can change it, convert it to a full version of Windows. But if you really don't need any more power than Windows S, it'll run faster in Windows S than it will in the full version of Windows. So that's kind of what's out there. Let's see, Scott Anderson. I seem to remember magnets are a no-no around hard drives. Is that still the case for SSDs? SSDs are not done magnetically. It's done through voltages, and the voltage is sent through a series of cells, and that causes the cell to change its characteristics. Let's put it that way. We won't get into the details there, but it's not magnetic. But even today, like this is a hard drive here. If you do have old hard drives and you do have children or grandchildren, I like to take these things apart and show them what's inside. And all you need is a screwdriver with a star end, and you can open it up. Here's the hard drive here. You can see the platter there. It's spinning there. There's the head. Head is currently parked. Well, I can push this release. I can move the head around so you can see how it works. This has some super magnets in here, which are really neat to take out. These are high-powered magnets in here, but they're less susceptible to a magnet. It has to be a very strong magnet, And because of these covers and the amount of shielding that's around here, they're 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 a lot better than what they used to be. Let's put it that way. Okay, let's see. Unless it's Dan Halter, unless it's certified for Windows 11, correct? Yeah, so there are some machines out there that may have Windows 10 on there that are certified, but they're very few. There's very few machines there because vendors know that uh, people are willing to buy Windows 11. So if I have a reconditioned machine or an older machine that is capable of running Windows 11, when I recondition it or I do anything with it, I upgrade it to Windows 11. And if you haven't upgraded to Windows 11, you should upgrade to Windows 11. Uh, so basically, if you see machines out there that just list Windows 10, probably 99.9% of them cannot be upgraded to Windows 11. So don't buy a machine that you see on eBay or reconditioned or stuff like that if it says Windows 10. And that was part of the reason I was waiting to actually upgrade my desktop, maybe even another year to Windows 11, because there aren't a lot of machines in the reconditioned world that are Windows 11. And so, but my machine, my hard drive on my current desktop was starting to throw errors, and Windows was reporting that the hard drive was starting to die. And so it was a case of I had the option. Yes, I could have bought a new hard drive or an SSD for that old machine and loaded Windows 10 on it, but I'd be putting in all that work and all that effort, and in a year and a half, I'd have to get a new machine anyway. So in my case, it was a no-brainer. I said, okay, I'm going to spend $400. I'm going to get a new machine with an SSD, with Windows 11, with more CPUs on it, faster CPUs, faster Wi-Fi, just faster everything there. The USB ports are much faster. So if you've got a machine that's 3 years old or 4 years old, again, machines are kind of like dogs. Multiply by 7 or by 10, and that's really how old that device is. And devices need to be replaced or should be replaced maybe every 4 years, 5 years. Uh, People will spend a fortune on phones and buy a new phone every 3 years, and yet they refuse to upgrade their laptop or their desktop every 3 years or 4 years. And really, with prices the way they are and the improvements that are made, a person should take advantage there. Let's see, Steve mentioned. So RAM boards do not have to be matched in size, like 2 8 GB. Installing mixed sizes is okay. Uh, yeah, that's why it's when you're looking to replace memory, you do have to put the proper memory in there, and that's where a site like Crucial is crucial to finding the right memory. If you put in slower memory, that'll just slow down your machine. So if your machine is capable of running at a faster speed and you put in slower memory, either you're going to have problems where the CPU is going to be running too fast and it starts throwing errors, or if your CPU is smart enough to slow things down, in order to read and write from the RAM, that's just going to slow your whole machine down. So that's why you want to use one of the sites to figure out the memory there. And you can mix and match. They don't have an 8 and a 4 can be put together. It doesn't have to be 2 8s. It doesn't have to be 2 16s. It's the speed of the speed and the type of memory that's on there that does have to be matched. And that's why you can use Task Manager to tell you what you currently have in there, but then also sites like Crucial to see what to buy. Doesn't mean that you have to buy your memory from Crucial. So once you know the type of memory and that, you can go to Amazon, you can go to eBay, you can go to Newegg, you can go wherever you want and buy the memory. But you want to make sure that you have the right number of pins, the right speed, and things like that. And also, you do want to check out your task manager because, like in my case, my desktop currently has 12 gigabytes of RAM. Well, both slots are full. So if I wanted to get 16, I couldn't just buy another 4 gigabytes of memory and expect to stick it on the motherboard because there is no available slot to put it in. So I'd have to take out one of them, most likely the 4 gigabyte, take that out, replace that with a 8 gigabyte. So and some motherboards have 4 slots in there, and some just have 2 slots. So that'll vary by the models that you have and what's out there, what's available. Okay. Jim mentions. I have a Lenovo and they keep sending me a suggestion for a new laptop. I'm willing to pay about $400. I will look at Walmart and Target. I'm uncomfortable with Best Buy. What's your opinion of Lenovo? The Lenovo makes good machines. So you know that's the IBM used to be the old IBM. IBM spun it off. So it is out there. HP makes the majority of the laptops, and I don't know who's second right now. I would guess it's probably Dell who's second, and then Lenovo would probably be in the top 5, but I'm not sure the exact position. So they're a good maker. Laptops, that initial graphic I had. The important components to any computer is what I was showing there. The CPU, the RAM, the hard disk drive, the GPU, what's the graphics processor, and all of those things are important. So somebody can buy a laptop, and if they said to me, well, I want to have two 4K monitors off of it. Well, if you want to run two 4K monitors off of it, you are not going to find a $400 laptop that will let you run two 4K monitors off of it. So you have to be realistic in what you're getting. A $400 laptop is a cheap laptop, and it is what it is. If the display is big enough, it may only be a 1K display. If that's good enough for what you want and fast enough, if the CPU is fast enough for what you want and the SSD has enough memory for what you want, then that's the right machine for you. But if you said, I want to do video processing and I want to pay $400 for a machine, no, you probably should be spending closer to $1,000 or more on a machine to buy a higher priced or a higher performance machine that'll let you do the things that you want to do. Okay. I see we've run over here. I'll stay on here. If anyone does have to go, certainly welcome to go there. But if you do have any other questions, I can take them or that. So any other questions or that? Yeah, looks like that. So I'll be sending out the notice for the April meeting, and that will be an in-person option at 3M in the same building that we had the pizza meeting last, what was that, October there or November. So that'll be going out either later today or tomorrow. Sign up and hope to see you at the next meeting. Otherwise, take care. And if you have any questions, you can email me or attend the April Q&A that we'll do online. Otherwise, thanks for joining today. Okay, bye everyone.